We'll call the meeting of the Minot City Council to order for today. It is Tuesday, July 6, 2020. It is 5:30 in the afternoon. I want to say thank you to everybody that has come to our meeting tonight, as this is the most people we have had in a very, very long time here at City Hall, maybe even before COVID. 2020. I would just ask that everyone go ahead and put your cell phones or electronic devices on vibrate or silent so that we can keep the distractions down to a minimum. Roll call, please.
Evans.
Here.
Janser.
Here.
Olson. Here. Pittner.
Here.
Padragula.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Sitma.
Here. Number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 3 on our agenda this evening is the mayor's report. I did have quite an extensive group of events that took place over the last month, and I'll just briefly, highlight some of the top items here. Aside from our regular monthly meetings, we did have a couple of flood home acquisitions that I did go and sign for. Verendrye Electric's annual meeting took place out at the State Fair Center, very well attended. We also did have a council retreat on the 11th and the 12th. I thought it important to perhaps also mark that occasion, as the entire city council was there for the better of 5, 6, 7 hours a day, or seemed like even longer at times. But a lot of great discussion and a lot more items that will be coming out of that council retreat that, by the way, was open to the general public the entire time, but we didn't have any takers that wanted to spend the entire Friday and Saturday with us. We did, the city manager, myself, and a few others did go through and tour the Blue on Broadway construction, as that is progressing along nicely. I expect to see, or we expect to see, kind of a late fall opening on that. I also had the opportunity to visit our folks at the Burdick Job Corps Center as they are ramping up their capacity, and was able to speak to a group of them about positive role models within the community. On the 18th, I attended Public Works, the very final day for Christine Goldander, and presented her with the mayor's coin, as she was the one who helped put together, for lack of a better term, a program that allows us to essentially get a discount on flood insurance within the city of Minot. So she did a fantastic job in building that program, and she unfortunately is heading off to Fargo as family is taking her out that way, but very appreciative for the work that she did with that. We did have a promotion ceremony for the Minot Police Department, special and regular city council meetings, and then really kind of geared up towards the flood anniversary that took place on June 26th. For the folks that may have seen it on the internet or perhaps attended in person, there was a full day of activities, and by no means was it easy to put together. We had a lot of different people that helped out through that entire event. The picture that you're seeing in kind of the background, you can go to mouseriveranniversary.com and check out the Resilient Together 10 years of the recovery and community. All of those are pictures that were submitted online, over 3,000 of them, to make up that mural. You can take a look at all of the different activities. I do want to say a very special thanks to former Mayor Kurt Zimbelman. It was a very, very difficult thing for him to come out. As I think a lot of folks, it was very emotionally driven event, and I think a lot of folks were kind of hesitant to come out for that reason, but appreciate Kurt coming out and sharing his thoughts and comments with the crowd, and I have no doubt he was very appreciative afterwards, as he did get a standing ovation for all of his efforts, and certainly the tremendous, I think, toll that it took on him and his family as well. But special thank you to Senator Hoeven. And then I do have to say just a couple of the others: Houston Engineering, Odney, HDR Engineering, and Hess for the sponsorships on that. They stepped up in a very big way, as well as the other members of our anniversary committee. And then also to a couple of staff members, Jonathan Rosenthal in the back for helping out, and then our city manager, as we ran short on volunteers in the morning, helped me set up the memory walk bright and early throughout the park, and then also to his family for handing out flyers on that. I'm going to do something impromptu very quickly here as we have a full agenda, but Derek, I need you out in front, please.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm calling the man from behind the curtain.
He's putting his lipstick. We're over there. That's okay.
We're over here? Okay, well, I'm waiting on you.
You have to do it with a crowd?
I had to do it with the crowd, and I figured it was no better way, but we had a very special video that was put together for the anniversary, and it took a tremendous amount of work. And for somebody who also went through the flood himself and spent I don't know how many hours, it was probably close to 40 or better when it's all said and done.
It's best we don't tell the taxpayers.
Right. But it was the story of not just the flood, but the resiliency as well, and to show how far we've come, which I think is the next big component of really what that event was meant to do. And while it was very difficult to watch, I know it was exceptionally done, seeing as that's kind of my area where I came from. So Derek, again, like I said to everybody else, I appreciate all the work that went into that, as it is the story of us, and we'll continue to add on to that for years to come. So
My pleasure.
thank you, Mr. PIO.
Yes, thank you.
I'll speed things along from here. We did also have the opportunity, Task Force 21, to go out and visit not only the commander out at the Minot Air Force Base for the 5th Bomb Wing, but some of the new incoming not wing commanders, but operational folks that are coming in as it's rotation season out at Minot Air Force Base. But we were able to go out there, and this is really first time since COVID. We were to be able to get together and meet a lot of those new faces coming in, and then also had the Team Minot breakfast with an update of the activities out there and updating the folks at Minot Air Force Base, what's happening downtown, and then a very brief meeting with Xcel Energy, talking about the reliability and future plans for their activities within Minot. As you can see, I had a number of other meetings, and I don't even care to think about how many phone calls, emails, social media, and staff interactions that went into this last month leading up to the anniversary. But it was a great month, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if anybody does have any from my report. If not, I would turn things over to our city manager.
I don't have anything additional to report other than what's in the memo in your packet. So unless council has any questions, We have some pretty hefty topics on the agenda tonight, so I will leave our time for that unless council has any questions.
Any questions for our city manager on his report that was also online submitted? All right. That moves us to our number 5, our city attorney's report. As I know, we do have a couple of busy weeks ahead.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I also submitted a written report, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Perhaps, Ms. Hendershot, if you could just give a very brief summary of the next couple of weeks on what your office and really what's going to be taking place that's
Sure.
kind of a benchmark for us finally.
Sure. Next Monday, July 12th, the City versus Cypress trial starts, the parking structure trial. It's scheduled to take 2 weeks at District Court here in Minot. Judge Gary Lee is presiding over that, and as of right now, we're expecting that to begin on Monday with jury selection. And so this week, our counsel from Dorsey Whitney is in town preparing for that and getting everything in order.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Ms. Hendershot? I just mentioned that only because I expect you and a lot of our staff to be out with that going on, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That takes us to number 6. This is the Minot Area Chamber EDC report. We do have a number of items that were submitted as well. For that, we do have our folks from the Chamber EDC that are in attendance, and I think John McMartin and John Connect. John Connect is the president of the board as they're making their way to the front. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. We submitted stuff. I'm not going to sit here and try and read through all of it. We've got a very quick set of slide deck to walk you through. Thank you. Derek, are you going to advance, or is there something I do to advance? Perfect.
Open that drawer.
Pardon?
Open that drawer.
Open the drawer. Candy.
Just clicker, right?
Yeah, pick a direction.
Oh,
The keypad.
yeah, right.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Backspace. There we go. Now I'm ready to start. Sorry. So myself and John are here. We'll note that we've had a merged organization effective as of January 1st. You've heard us talk about the Chamber EDC. You've got a copy of our mission, vision, and values. John will talk more on this slide later in the 14-member volunteer board. Recent achievements for the Economic Development Organization include the intermodal transportation, our new operator, Rail Modal Group, $2 million that we were able to secure from the state assistance funding. And as we indicate in the material we handed out, there's been 1 unit train per week out of Minot since the end of October, 28 trains, over 6,000 containers delivered to the port in Seattle, Tacoma. The logistics park of Minot, you'll be talking later on the agenda about the Chrissy Grant, but the Chrissy Grant is designed to help make some decisions using some federal dollars on how the future development of that should occur and do some environmental scanning so that, again, the land is closer to being ready, the balance of the land out there north of the highway, ready to be included, hopefully, in the BNSF site certification. We've worked on Minot Air Force Base retention. I think every month you hear the mayor talk about different activities and what's been going on for him. We continue to work on that. And moving forward, it's going to continue to be a push because of some of the people around the U.S. House and U.S. Senate that would perhaps like to do away with the missile component of the triad. Department of Commerce, I make reference in the written material of RFPs we've referred to. We've got a couple of prospective clients that we're working with for projects here in town. The Lois website subscription is up. Jamie has been working started working this week to input material. And it almost seemed like everything she was doing she could find, and then she lost it. And she eventually was able to talk to somebody down there, and they were having software issues. So hopefully that's resolved by tomorrow, just in case anybody goes out to look. But we've probably got 4 or 5 properties out there right now, or 3 or 4 properties in a building. We'll be getting more. And then we've updated and revised the website, which I know was one of the key things in the new contract. Our budget request, as you can see, actual costs, we've got salaries and benefits, the administrative expenses, trade shows. Total actual costs are about $505,600. The request to you is for $435,000. The balance, the difference is made up in what the investors, the former investors pay in dues to belong to the organization. So we feel that that is what we need to do to comply with the contract that we have with you. In addition to the 435, you have given, when MADC would come at one, Chamber would come with another, the $75,000 is a $5,000 increase over last year. It was at 70. And again, I've referenced why we think we need the dollars to help us in our efforts to work to retain the base. Well, future tasks, we're going to continue to market and promote the city. We've hired a new position, which has made a huge difference already. We're going to be working on long-range intermodal opportunities for the Logistics Park of North Dakota, and we'll be working to recruit tenants to the Logistic Park of Minot. Secure long-term viability for intermodal. We're going to be doing membership recruitment and retention, small business entrepreneur development. We're working with Kevin Black, one of our board members that has a passion for this, and hopefully in the fall be rolling something out on small business entrepreneur development. Support CTE in downtown. We've been involved in that. You'll see I made reference to a number of hours that the attorney did work on the CTE grant, and part of the money that you give to us pays for that. BR&E, we've gone through all of the paperwork, double-checked, and have come up with a new program, or a revised program that will be going out, and we've given you a percentage number that we hope to have done by the end of the year. Support the Magic Fund administratively, kind of talked about that with CTE. Comprehensive strategic planning is something we're working towards, hoping to be able to start fourth quarter of this year, certainly first quarter of next year, and then ultimately succession planning for the organization's position of president. Future task, what's the future task? Enter. Okay, I'm going to let John have a few comments here on the recent achievements and the merged organizations.
Thanks, John. Council members, I really wanted to kind of talk about our 14-member volunteer board mainly, and publicly thank them. It's one of the hardest working boards I've ever been involved with. We have members of our board that probably put in 20 hours a week into the chamber EDC work involvement, whether it's the port, whether it's the industrial park, whether it's cleaning up messes from the past, and whether it's merging the two organizations together. I've never seen a board work so hard at what they do with the end goals in mind that are going to support our community. With our budget ask, we appreciate the collaboration that we have with the city. It takes your help with us to do all of these things that we are working on. I believe you do have a key initiatives list in the packet of materials that we have given you. It kind of shows that board involvement that we have. I have several of my board members in attendance tonight as well. We have a very strong board. We have a strong merged organization to move forward, and we appreciate your support in doing that. And we're very excited about the achievements that we have made in such a short period of time of a new organization. We've been at this for 7 months, and we have a port open. That port project we've been working on that for over 2 years, and we'll likely have something done to make that a long-term facility that we can really expand that section of our city and draw and bring in more jobs for workforce in our community. So thank you. Again, appreciate your support, and I think John and I would just open it up to any questions for us.
The next slide just says questions.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for either Mr. Connect or Mr. McMartin at this time from any of the slides or anything that was submitted? Alderwoman Evans.
Comments and questions. So this is fantastic. This is exactly when I, had some concerns a few months ago. This is what I was looking for, right? Is this cogent, succinct document that's very clear on, what EDC is going to do with taxpayer money, with objectives and strategic plans. Like it makes my heart happy. So thank you. I know this probably took some time, but hopefully it gave focus to the board and staff as well about moving forward. And I feel so much better about, if a taxpayer was to come up and say, what the heck are they spending our money on, that we have, what I think is really good documentation. So thank you for doing that. I'm just curious, and perhaps my colleagues who serve on Task Force 21 can, what is that allocation for Task Force 21? What is that used for?
If I stumble, Mark, you pick up the pieces. That primarily, we've got a contract with the city, Alderwoman Evans, and the things that we can spend that money on are spelled out in there. In no place does it cover any staff time. It covers travel, some travel expenses. It does not cover meals or anything else. It covers some consultant reports. That figure has been as high as probably $400,000 or $500,000 a year when we were going through the BRAC rounds for some very specific things that needed to get done. That was before the state helped with some funding. Over the years, we've ratcheted it down because there has been diminished activity. Given the current administration and some of the pushing that's going on, we think we're going to be further engaged, and we're able to couple the money that the city gives, the city invests in that operation, along with dollars that we've gotten from the state in the past. And we've been very frugal with the dollars that both the city and the state have provided us. I think we turned dollars back at the end of the fiscal year in December. We'd like to, it's not that we don't have places to spend it, COVID reduced travel, reduced everything. But we're planning for September, late September, a symposium again in Washington, D.C. We think that that's the best use of our money and our time. It shows that the DC insiders, that there are local communities that care and understand what's going on with the nuclear triad and the defense of our nation.
And just one more, I want to thank you. John took some time out of his schedule a few weeks ago to take me and show me every nook and cranny of the port and the dreams of the intermodal facility. And so, I feel like I have a much greater sense of, visioning and the plans for that. So I appreciate your time, and I encourage, any other of my colleagues who have a few hours to go, and John will drive you around the back roads and the things.
I can make it very quick, or it could be about an hour. So
Yeah.
if you have thoughts and want to see something, give me a shout.
So I appreciate it. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. No, thanks for the report. I want to echo Alderwoman Evans' comments. Having reservations or comments, criticisms in the past, this is what we want. This is what I want. This is what I can go to a taxpayer and say, this is what we're doing. This is the collaborative effort that we're taking with taxpayer dollars to move a vision and a mission and a strategic deliverables forward. So I appreciate hearing that criticism from anybody up here, and including myself, and responding very well. So again, I appreciate the work that's gone into this.
Thank you.
Any last questions or comments? Alderman Patagula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank both of you for coming and presenting and having a very detailed and I think very appropriate plan for how you plan to use our money and work together in developing this area of our community. Echoing what Carrie said and what Paul said, I think is exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. It spells out how you plan to use the money, how you plan to move forward. It also, I think, gives you the latitude and the flexibility to improvise as you go along. Things change, and you need to be nimble. You need to be able to jump on opportunities as they arise. The only thing I think I would add in the strategic planning process, I would encourage you to actively involve the new staff that we have hired and staff that have been on for a while that have real expertise in that area. I think the city, and not just the elected officials, but the staff need to be partners with you in developing some of those specific objectives and goals and plans. So I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing here. This satisfies my needs for accountability, and I wish you the best and look forward to an even closer working relationship with the private sector in developing the economics of our community.
Thank you.
Last call for comments or questions. Mr. City Manager.
Just want to respond real quickly on the question with regards to Task Force 21 and provide, well, I can for a little while until I get a little bit more established, some outside perspective. Having been involved in a community that had a major military component to it with an Air Force base, I can tell you that Task Force 21 for the community of Minot is looked to as a standard throughout the country. You do that very well. It's a mechanism that many military communities throughout the country are trying to create on their own. So I would see it as a fault of mine if I didn't give some positive feedback here to your community with what you've done with Task Force 21. The symposium you have every year, the military relations you've built is a standard that regarding community military relationships that is very well respected throughout the community or throughout the country, especially communities that have military bases. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you.
Thanks for those comments.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That takes us to our next area of the agenda, and that is consent items. We have 15 different items that are on our consent. 7.15 has been pulled for individual discussion. Are there any other items that need to be pulled for individual discussion? Otherwise, they will be passed as recommended by staff. And for the audience, if there is any one item out of 7.1 through 7.14 that needs to be pulled, this is the time to let us know. If not, what are the wishes of the council?
Move consent.
Move consent on items 7.1 through 7.14. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Motion is to approve 7.1 through 7.14 as recommended. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 7.15 is the retirement and transfer of ownership of Police K-9 Lois. Police officer and canine handler Eric Lodgeslager resigned his position with the Minot Police Department on June 22nd, 2021. The police canine Lois has been in service since March 2015 and was partnered with Officer Lodgeslager for her entire career. Jason Sunbakken is here with us this evening to give a little more detail with this, and I also understand that Lois couldn't be here with us tonight, but to expect perhaps the canine to be at our next meeting.
That's correct. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for your time and service tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Captain Jason Sunbach, and I'm the Administrative Commander for the Police Department. I just want to speak to you briefly about our canine Lois tonight. We are requesting that the council consider allowing canine Lois to retire and be purchased by her handler, Eric Lodgeslager. So Lois came to the police department in March of 2015. She served with us for 6 years and 4 months with solely with Officer Lodgeslager. Due to Officer Lodgeslager's recent resignation and the time and effort that it takes to recertify a dog handler, we don't feel it's feasible at this point to try and reassign Lois to another handler. So we're requesting that the city council allow her to be retired and to be purchased by Officer Lodgeslager. As the mayor said, we would have liked to have had her here tonight. We weren't able to make that happen, but the chief has indicated that he would like to have a small retirement ceremony for her when he returns. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, Alderman Patagula?
Yes, the reason I had this polled is I wanted to ask about the plans for replacing the canine. This is a vital operator, if you will, in our public safety efforts, and I think it's important. Well, tell me what you're planning on doing.
We do plan on, the first step in that is to try and identify a handler, an officer who wishes to be a handler. So we do plan on identifying those individuals who wish to be handlers, choosing one of those people, and I would imagine sometime in the next year we will start the process of trying to purchase another dog to replace Lois. She's very vital. All of our canines are vital to our operation and offer a resource that we as human beings can't fill. So
I guess I'm glad that we have plans to do that. I would very strongly encourage you to expedite those plans. I think that is a very important officer operating unit for the police, and I think it's really important that we have at least 3 fully equipped canines with well-trained handlers. I would like, again, to see that expedited as quickly as we can.
Alderman Patagula, I think we concur with that. We would like to get that process moving as quickly, as expeditiously as possible.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for Captain Sunbach and Mr. City Manager?
Not so much a question as much as a statement. One, it is customary for the handler to retain ownership of the dog, much like our human employees. They have personal lives outside of their job, and the dog quickly becomes a member of the family of the handler. And it's not uncommon for the dog to enjoy its retirement with the family of the handler. Average work lifespan of a canine officer is usually about 7 years, and so we were getting really close to that. And I agree with the assessment that, with only 1 year left at best, the cost and effort to go through on retraining that would not be worth it. But also, I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit too that this is a very popular, visible mascot, so to speak, of our department often, and I've often seen many communities be very supportive of this. And while oftentimes cities often have the financial ability to go ahead and replace the canine officer, which usually runs anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 by the time you purchase the dog and train the handler and all those types of things. I have seen very successful programs in other communities where the communities actually raised and donated the funds to the city for the purchase and the training of the animal as well. And so if there is anyone listening or watching tonight that would like to participate in that, now would be a good time to talk with Chief Klug or myself to do that. And again, I want to be very clear that we don't have the perception that the city can't afford to replace the animal, but at the same time, if there are willing parties that are willing to help bear that cost, that the rest of the taxpayers don't have to pay that, we're happy to explore that option as well. But I do believe Lois deserves a well-reserved retirement.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
We have three recommendations, and I'll look to you then.
Okay.
The recommendation approval is to approve the retirement of the police K-9 Lois, and 2, recommend approval of the sale and transfer of the ownership of the police K-9 Lois, and 3, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Alderwoman Evans.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3 items.
Second.
Motion by Alderwoman Evans, second by Alderman Patagula. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Final call for discussion. Motion is to approve the 3 recommendations. Please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padrigula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes. Motion is approved. 8.1 in our action item section is Ferguson Books and More Success Depot Rental. Ferguson Books and More has been holding a weekend pop-up sales at the Success Depot for the past 3 years. The property was purchased by the City of Minot as the location as the new City Hall building. Mr. Ferguson submitted a request that the City Council consider allowing him to rent the space to conduct the pop-up sale July 16th and 17th, 2021. The recommendation to Council is to consider the request from Dane Ferguson of Ferguson Books and More to conduct a pop-up sale at the Success Depot July 16th and 17th of 2021.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderwoman Olson to approve.
Second.
Second by Alderman Janser. Discussion on the motion. Alderwoman Evans.
I just have a question. I don't know who can answer it. Do we allow rentals on other city property? Like, is this common? Are we setting a precedent? Like, what, can somebody answer that for
Mr.
me?
City Manager.
We typically do not. We have allowed it on some occasions. Staff is actually currently working on a policy of when and how we would allow rentals. This one is a bit of an exception because the agreement was reached with the previous owner, and we weren't aware of it until here recently. The rental income will be considered program income for our federal funding that's used to remodel the new city hall. And without any policy in place, it did warrant direct approval of the council, given the circumstance. But typically, we try not to allow the rental of public property, especially for private use, that can be used for garnering a profit. But again, this one was agreed to prior to the city taking ownership of the facility.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Last call for discussion. Motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Olson? Yes. Pittner?
Yes.
Padrigula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. 8.2 is the Downtown Facade Improvement Forgivable Loan Program. A number of city plan and economic development studies have concluded that the city needs to create incentives to improve the downtown building and specifically recommended establishing a facade improvement program. A facade improvement program will address long-term market failures that have led to vacancies and underutilize the properties that are located in the central business district. The recommendations to the City Council was to approve a resolution adopting a facade improvement program in the form of a forgivable loan program and adopt design standards for that program.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. This is not a public hearing, however, seeing as we have a full set of folks in attendance here. Perhaps I would look to Mr. Rosenthal first, and then if there's a few other people that have short comments, if not, I can certainly call for a raise of hands who are in support as well. Mr. Rosenthal.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, if it would please you, I do have one person who's waiting outside who wants to go back to work, and just as in consideration for her, or could we have her speak
Absolutely.
before I do? Margie?
Thank you,
Let
Mr.
her
Rosenthal.
get back to making some money when she's done
Yeah.
here.
If you would just identify your name and your business that you're identifying with.
Mayor Sitma and members of the council, thank you for making those adjustments for me. My name is Margie Bolton. I live at 109 Main Street South. I am a downtown business person. I also own the building, and we also live there. The program that we're asking you to to facilitate is something that I think is very much needed for the downtown. I'm here at the request of Mr. Rosenthal. I've had the occasion to be in several of the meetings discussing the facade program and with the structures. I'd like to share that my husband and I are both in support of the program, and we're kind of excited about the opportunity that it might give us. In a nutshell, it comes down to many of the recently created the inherent problems with these old buildings. It makes it hard for a business person to necessarily make some of the improvements that we'd really like to have. For myself, I know it would help the livability for people with disabilities in my building is something that I wouldn't be able to do without this program. I'm hoping that it'll allow us to make some changes and things to the building that financially we would never be allowed to do. I've penciled out many times, if we do this and we could change that, and it just isn't something that we could do without the help with these historic buildings. There's just so many things that hold us back from making the changes that that many of us would like to make in making our businesses more accessible. And of course, the outside looks of it is almost secondary for me. I'm excited about what I can see for accessibility to other people into my program. When you consider the updates and that kind of thing that are required for a new building that we just can't really do, it puts us, very much in the red. And so I just want to say that I really appreciate that you even are considering this program. Many of us have a real passion for these old historic buildings. I know not everybody does, but it's a part of Minot history, and we just need to bring them up into the 21st century so that our community can appreciate them again. And I, for one, just hope that you will be able to support the program. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. Mr. Rosenthal.
I think this works. Okay. I think I can speak tonight with a fair amount of assurance that this is where we are. When we've mentioned this before, I haven't been able to speak with a full confidence because we didn't know where it was going. But now we're in a position where money's been allocated. Pardon me. Let's try this again.
You can use the keyboard too.
Yeah, I'm trying the keyboard and I'm,
Well, is there one in the drawer?
yeah, I pulled it out. Maybe it's off. Oops. What's going on here? You going? There we go. Sorry. This is the downtown Minot, probably just post-war period. And you get a pretty good idea of how vibrant it was at that time. One thing I'll notice that will come up in mentions further on are all these blade signs. These are the signs that come off perpendicular from the building, and they're really advantageous for pedestrians because they can be seen down the street. The ones that are on the face of the building are obviously can't be read until you're in front of the building. Now, we take a look at the downtown, and when we keep looking at these plans, they keep talking about revitalizing downtown. Talk about the quotes there, keep the heart of Minot strong. Focus on redevelopment efforts. And we would include housing in this at some point. I happen to choose this one building here for this slide because that building's in fabulous condition. Now, many plans, studies, and white papers have been done. You're going to see some of the plan quotes. I'm not going to read all of them. I just want to give you a sense that this has been discussed for a good long time. Although we go back 10 years with a comprehensive plan, plans for addressing downtown have gone back farther than that. I think sometimes we get accused of doing plans and putting them on the shelves, but they're only plans to go up on the shelf if we let them stay there, if we don't act on them. So again, without belaboring too many of the points here, the riverfront and center plan took up a number of issues regarding downtown, talking about as a regional shopping hub, talking about the visioning of the revitalization of the town. We want to encourage new businesses to locate in the central business district. We want to encourage building owners to maintain their buildings in a suitable manner. And we're lacking, bring those buildings into code compliance. So these are the kinds of things that are showing up again and again in the plan. Plans, rather. If we talk about it being a vibrant center of the city, we're talking about making downtown Minot a desirable destination and working on the aesthetics of the physical environment. We want to maintain downtown focus as a focus for the region. I think that when people take a look at, in terms of a region, we're about 65% of the population drawing a 25-mile circle around us. It doesn't go down much as you start going a little further than 25 miles. We are an important aspect already for the area and, of course, for the city itself. Where are we going to be 10, 20 years from now? And the things that are done today are the basis for where the city is going to stand in the future. So, as I said, the importance of downtown keeps coming up again and again in these plans. And so when I came here and was told to go ahead and look at the plans, certainly kept seeing it again and again. So we have addressed the physical conditions of downtown with the reconstruction of the infrastructure over the last roughly 5 years. Now, the underground infrastructure was dealt with, but now it's time to deal with some of the above-ground conditions. If we slow down enough when you're in your car or walking and take a closer look at the appearance of downtown, you will see that there are things that need to be addressed. I might add that I'm kind of gratified by the number of people who are here tonight that have come to show support. Most of the people that are here tonight are people that I've talked to at one time or another and had their input in crafting how this is being presented tonight. This happens to be Margie's building, who just spoke. You can see that the second floor windows are in need of attention. The white brick that's on the first floor is inappropriate. It was tacked on at some point. We could look at energy efficient windows, improve the entrance to the upper floors, although I don't think there's a delicate way to describe this. To get these properly designed is important. There are people who use them as, again, not a delicate way to put it, use those spaces, the upstairs, as urinals. We can design to improve the lighting and things like that to make it more appropriate. This is a building that had some structural issues that were addressed, and although the condition of this building in general at this point are in good shape, you can see that those windows are not the way they were originally intended. They had a large bank of windows there, and again, this could be improved, and eventually you want the upper floors occupied. We're not addressing that here, but by preserving the building now in the right way, it can be addressed at a future date. And this building, the owners are here tonight. This is a building that, if you look at the top of the building, there was a cornice removed. That soft brick and wood that's up there will slowly deteriorate the building, eventually ruining the parapet of the building and compromising the building. The materials on the first floor have been added over the years, corrugated metal, plywood, other things. This is just not the way the building was designed. This is something that could be improved and, again, could be an asset. And unfortunately, someone has broken a window on the third floor. I was trying to, not here in this photo, but recently. And again, people get the idea that that something's not in good shape. Sometimes buildings have been altered in a way that are difficult to remove. Fiancé is a good, strong building, but what's been added to it was not appropriate. On the other hand, for the time period, but it can't be removed. On the other hand, the Realtors building here has a block wall that's been erected in front of a building that's essentially intact. It needs some work. Nevertheless, removing the wall will go a long way towards solving that problem. That's an easy fix. And we just take a look at, over the years, people looking at just shrunk their windows. Just essentially, there's no sunlight coming into these floors or they put up reflective glass, which essentially says, don't look in, it's not available. So there are some things that can be done that are commonly done to properly repair these buildings. The last study that was done, and kind of my marching orders involved the IDC report, which is about 2 years ago, and I just remind you that there were many of the people in this room were at those meetings. I've seen videos of, I think Mr. Padragula was at a few of the meetings. Mr. Hugert was at a number of the meetings. Mayor Sitma was at a number of the meetings. The people reporting back said, address downtown. Now, we can take a look at one building here. It's a fairly prominent building, and they've got a nice business on the first floor. But this was a FW Woolworths at one time, and you can see it's already gone through 2 changes. And I think by most standards, people would say the original shape of the building reflects what most people would prefer, and that's what's happening across the country. I might add, it's hard to see it in this particular photograph, but the things that have been added to this building on the second floor are already coming loose. Not already, it's been there quite a while. So what's our approach that we were suggesting out of all these meetings? We believe that a one-and-done approach, you make the changes to the facade and you're done with it. You don't have to keep coming back. You don't have to say, well, we did a little bit, but we didn't finish it. But maybe we'll finish it someday. Someday frequently turns to not at all. The incentive is intended to move every property owner to participate. Obviously, we can't fund we can't afford to do every single one of these, but it is meant that most people will say it's an incentive that's sufficient to get them to participate. Again, it's a 25-75 match. We would have respect for the original design, the historic design of the buildings, use durable materials, and then we have long-term accountability. We're recommending a 10-year agreement. These are some facades I did in another city, and did 13 facades over 4 years. And by doing this, you make the city more attractive. There's an antique car show and other activities. These are the kinds of things that are improved by making the physical improvements. Again, I wanted to make note that if we take a look at the concentration of retail on Main Street, you can see more or less up the center of the photograph, there are number of green dots. And then on the side streets, those buildings are currently or could be returned to retail use as well. They're designed for that. But if we take a look at the number of buildings that are vacant or closed or underutilized, meaning not retail, not open at night, you see that the number of buildings that are used actually go down quite a bit. And you don't have a vibrant retail setup there because, again, it's just not that active. The blue dots indicate food uses, and they are one of the things that you will see open at night. Number of vacant floors. Now, the building on the right is completely empty, but the upper floors on all of these buildings are vacant. It can take quite a bit of work to deal with buildings. This fellow on the left is reconstructing a brownstone lintel over the windows, and again, working on the cornice of these two buildings. So how do we measure the success going forward? Well, first, we want to be informed by previous plans and state and national trends, and I think we've tried to reflect that. We want to move the current conditions off the dime. In other words, where there's been inaction, we want action. We want to address market failures, which include lack of investment, vacancies, underutilization. We want to encourage new private investment. And even if there's a cost-sharing element with the facade, no one gets away without doing the inside of their building, without addressing handicapped issues on the inside and so forth. We need, or if there's structural issues, I want to mention those as well. We want to encourage the development of new businesses downtown, encourage new downtown housing eventually. That doesn't come out right out of this program, but it's the foundation. We improve the aesthetics of downtown. We respect the historic character of downtown. We have a design vocabulary from people to start from. We want to be part of placemaking. That's part of making the downtown a focus of development and a focus of activity. We want to coordinate with the physical street and sidewalk improvements, and again, strive for area impact by concentrating efforts in the area. So who's included? We want to take a look at the map here. What we have is essentially most of downtown as you know it. On the left-hand side, it's Broadway. On the north side is Burdick. It doesn't cross Burdick, but and then comes down along railroad track and along 4th Street southeast, and then bounded by the railroad tracks on the north side. So how can people apply? Program details after tonight will be available, if it passes, can be found on the City of Minot's Community Development website. They do need to meet with our department and do a walkthrough so we can take a look at the conditions in the building. They need to fill out an application. They need to work with either an architect or design build firm to determine the scope of work, materials, especially the windows and doors that need to be done, and provide an initial cost estimate. And then they need to pay an application fee and submit complete plans and contractor estimates. And in the end, the applications, as we intend, will be reviewed by staff, and those comments and corrections will then go to the Renaissance Zone Review Board. Some of those members are here tonight, the board, and their recommendations then go on to you for your final approval. Just want to show, if these are things that I'd worked on 10 years ago, and although one building is twice as wide, the cost was about the same based on the kind of renovations that had to be done. If you take a look at the building on the right, they restored those wooden doors that you see on the front of the building and to the side for the upstairs. The stonework had to be restored by a specialist it's on a historic register, by the way. That's not going to be an issue here for the most part. The building on the left required extensive work up high, and it's got two facades because it goes around the corner as well. And all the yellow woodwork that you see there and all the windows had to be redone on the building. So, and I might add that those trees and lights and brickwork were part of a streetscape. These are just others, just down the street from those other two buildings you saw, about the same size. The yellow brick building is a 1904 building, so it kind of fits the buildings that we're talking about here. One became the red brick building became a restaurant, and they pretty much right in the center, the newspaper occupied that office. So we are applying, as we're proposing this, a 10-year commitment to standards with clawback provisions in events of default if they don't behave, that there are design requirements, that they have to do appropriate ADA access and adaptability of the building, that we review the entire building to make certain that we don't throw good money after bad, the roof isn't coming in or the building isn't open to animals or whatever. We should tie this in the long run to our retail recruitment efforts that our city manager has proposed and advocated, and that we also need to take a look at the renewal of the upper floors, at least on a discussion basis. We want the owners to be thinking about that. Thank you for supporting Downtown Minot, and I just ask you to think one last time that in terms of this is not one large project. This is actually, depending on the applications, 10 to 14 smaller projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Any questions for Jonathan at this time? Alderwoman Evans.
So how would it work? Okay, so let's say I'm Margie, and
Okay.
I apply for this, and I
Right.
do my facade, but before that 10 years, right, it would be 10-year forgivable?
Right.
I sell the property. Can I transfer that, like,
It would be
over?
transferred to the new owner.
Okay, and as long as the new owner stays in compliance with
Yes.
the program guidelines?
We're not going to prevent somebody from selling their property, no.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
because some of our downtown folks will undoubtedly, move on in 10 years and, so, okay.
Yeah, I think the important part is that they continue to maintain it.
Right, great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Mr. City Manager.
Just in response to that, there's actually two options, and that is if the property owner that's purchasing the property doesn't want to take on that obligation, the current property owner could repay the loan to the city at that time. So they'd either repay the loan if they weren't able to meet the full 10 years, or that could be transferred through deed restriction to the new property owner.
Further questions? Alderman Ross.
Just a few questions, Jonathan. First of all, when you talk about the facade program, and when Margie was up here speaking, she talked about already doing something to the second floor. I guess, are we talking, is this strictly exterior type of construction projects we're talking about, or are we already going inside and starting to?
Yeah, I forgot the courtesy through the mayor and the council. No, it's not on the inside. She's probably referring to the windows alone, and the one interior element that's involved are in the vestibules and the display windows. So essentially, we're treating that as part of the exterior. But in her particular case, referring to the second floor, it would just be the windows. I think she just means that it gives her an opportunity to have enough funds left over to do other work. I believe that's what she was saying.
And if we have,
Continue.
So if you have, if there are 30 businesses along Main Street and 20 of them take part in this, we're still going to have 10 buildings that are going to look out of place.
Yes.
Help me answer this question. Help me, because I've been asked this question by businesses in other parts of the city. How can I defend this project to a business on North Broadway, a business on South Broadway, a business on West Burdick Expressway? Help me defend this project.
Right. Well, I think your downtown is a special asset in a number of ways. I think most communities that have undertaken this make that commitment. I would say that we are doing some other things that are in earlier stage and more complicated. For instance, the planning department is undertaking a beautification process or planning process along all of Broadway that will affect virtually miles of territory. As far as downtown, it's a special animal. It's one that was built without parking. It was built in the days before some of the current building codes were in place that would have meant that the buildings out in some of those areas were just built differently. And some of them have two roads. They have a frontage road that's maintained, plus the road out in front of that. So there are some investments that go on with other parts of the city that aren't the same as what they get downtown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Rosenthal, too, I might just add a few small comments onto that. And attending a number of different seminars and economic development specialists that have visited either at the Downtown Main Street Initiative or other economic development initiatives, either from Governor Burgum or even his predecessor, looking back. And they identified, and it's not just they, America has identified the downtowns of Middle America essentially as the uniqueness that either identifies us as a drawing point or separates us as one that isn't, and draws people to those communities that are. Downtown Fargo identified that. Bismarck definitely has identified those as assets that they want to revitalize, and that's been the case for probably well more than a decade north in a lot of other communities around the country, which is why it keeps coming back to downtown. It's not that it's given all of this special treatment. It's meant to be one of the assets that draws people in, and what the economists have proven time and time again is if that you have that draw for downtown, that does create a windfall for other areas of the community that brings them in and then also creates better business for the other areas within the communities having that asset. You would have to look at some of the different communities specifically to identify those numbers, and I don't have them in front of me. But that is why I've been supportive of the Main Street Initiative, the Downtown Initiative, because as I think the last or the latest one in the Downtown Main Street Initiative, and I'm not going to identify any other areas of town and say that it's not unique, but you look around town and doesn't matter what avenue it is, there's a lot of other communities, a lot of other cities that have exactly what we have. What is it that makes us unique? And those folks with the success stories of economic rebirth, it's the downtown. Further questions or comments for Mr. Rosenthal? Alderman Ross.
Just a comment. I really do want to make it clear that I'm not an opponent of downtown. Being born and raised in Minot, I remember buying school clothes downtown and how vibrant that was. I've talked with members of the council on some big plans and some grandiose ideas that I have for downtown. But there are still other segments of the community that ask questions. And when I was elected, that was one of the things I was going to do. I was going to speak for them and ask these questions. So I'm not against downtown. I spend many nights downtown. I enjoy it. I want to see it thrive. But once again, I just have questions. Thank you.
Alderman Pittner.
I don't have any questions, comments only. Again, I've been at the beginning of this project back to September, October, maybe of last year, and it's taken a lot of work. And before I get too far, I wanted to thank City Manager's Office, Kelly Hendershot in legal, Dave with finance, Jonathan, Brian, downtown vendors, everybody that's put in countless hours into this and getting this to this point, to an actionable item. And again, I appreciate all the questions, the criticisms. Again, businesses outside of downtown, it's not that we don't care about those businesses. It's just this is the program that's in front of us. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're talking about. If there's a program that can help other businesses in Minot, I'm all for it. And I want to support those things. And again, I know it's tough for probably some property owners that are in here to have Jonathan pull up a slide of your building and say it needs work. But that's the reality of it. That's the reality. That's the things that I deal with in my own home, and we all do. And curb appeal will go a long way. This is a tool. This isn't a magic pill. This isn't going to cure downtown. We're not going to fix the facades. And this is the first step in many, 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 many steps, community-wide that we need to look at. We look at Trinity vacating buildings downtown. This will grant us the opportunity to have a more attractive downtown, to improve investment downtown, so that when some of those things are vacated, we have people that want to fill those vacancies and fill those voids in downtown. So again, this is the first step in a 100-mile journey that we're about to take, because these programs are going to evolve. There will be more tools that we're able to develop to help business owners, not only downtown, but community-wide. Again, Jonathan has been a part of, and maybe I'll ask you that, Jonathan, when was your start date for this position?
September 14.
So September 14th of last year, so not even a full calendar year, and we're seeing programs like the wayfinding signage that other departments were working on. The parklet program, this program, things that we're seeing that we're really able to start to take a role in and have a collaborative effort with other community partners and move forward. Again, this is just one of many tools that I think we can put in the toolbox for redevelopment of downtown. I'm very excited about this project. I'm very excited about the turnout and giving people the opportunity, because again, these are lifts that these business owners and these property owners can't do alone. They're just not feasible. They don't make the bottom line work. So through a collaborative effort, and we have the city's getting something out of this. The city's getting some teeth in this agreement that make business owners accountable to the city. So again, I'm very excited about this. I'm excited about the opportunity this is going to provide for a lot of people.
One small correction, or maybe asterisk on that. I would call this step 2. Step 1 was all of the infrastructure, and I could probably look around and see a whole lot of nodding heads of the 3+ years of intense disruption where all of the streets, sewer, and water were tore up through that CDBG grant program. So not often I like to correct people, but maybe step 2. Alderman Patagula, and then we'll come back.
Just some personal comments here. I guess first of all, I think the questions that are being asked, that are being raised, are very legitimate ones and need to be raised. Particularly when there's an appearance or the possibility of an appearance of favoritism toward one group or another. But I think Paul put it very well when he said this is the plan that's before us. I'd like to see more plans. I think all of us would like to see more plans, but this is what we have. Second, I think downtown really is a special case, and I think you provided a very good answer, Jonathan, in terms of why downtown. We've already invested $30–40 million in the infrastructure, as the mayor has said. This is the second step. I think it makes sense to carry that through. Sometimes we make expenditures and it's not a good idea and we have to cut our losses. I don't think that's one of those cases here. We always have to be willing to do that. We always have to be willing to look at the sunken cost fallacy and not just keep throwing good money after bad. I think there's more opportunity here. The third comment I'd make would be a personal one. I've been spending a lot of time in Fargo the past couple of months getting health care. And I've been walking around downtown Fargo a lot, and it's a very exciting place. And I'd like Minot to be just as exciting. Perhaps we can't build an 18-story building, but what's really wonderful is the mix of new and old and the reuse, the recycling. We're going to be talking about recycling trash later. But I think the same point applies. We have to reuse and keep using and improvise and improve. We can't just tear something down and build something new. So I think this fits in with kind of the ethos, the ethics of the times in many respects, not just in terms of buildings. Another point I'd make is that I've always been a fan of downtowns. I opened up my professional practice and stayed downtown for 17 years. That's where I wanted to be. The only reason I left was the people sold the building and couldn't stay there. But I think there is something special, and I've personally made that commitment. That commitment bears a cost. I mean, you have to pay for parking and things like that. But I've invested both in terms of my staff, myself, and my practice and my business in downtown. I put my money where my mouth is. For example, I paid my staff's parking. So I don't want them running around the block, moving their cars, trying to meet the 2-hour, 90-minute limit. And I pay for my customers' parking too. But I think downtown merits that kind of investment, at least on my part it has. That's always been my feeling. And the final comment I'd make is I think that central cities have always been kind of the heart of who we are as animals that cluster, as humans that cluster into groups. I mean, we've had cities for 10, 14,000 years or something, and it seems that what is best about our species is that clustering, that the things happen when we're together, that things happen when we can go across the street and share a cup of whatever. Things happen when we're congregated together. Luckily in Minot, we don't have the extent of the social problems we have in bigger cities. So I think we can get pretty much all of the good things of clustering and being together without necessarily having many of the bad things. So I see this as being historically justified. When I think of the cities that I go to, the cities that I want to go to in the time I have remaining, I don't want to go to places that have strip malls. I don't want to go to giant shopping centers. I have nothing against them. But the thing that attracts me is again that sharing of space, that mixed use, that diversity of people. It was a very enjoyable evening I spent in Fargo about 6 weeks ago. Actually, one of the things that was nice about it is they have kind of a gathering space there. But I was not there at 10 o'clock in the evening when they closed the place. And there was also a shooting a couple days beforehand. So, it isn't all peachy keen. There are issues with public places like that. But I think also one of the things that they have is a public-private partnership in terms of the gathering space and some of the buildings. So, everything that I know, both in terms of my own personal unique experiences and everything I know about cultural history, suggests that it really is worth investing. And again, it's not to disadvantage or ignore any other place or location. But I think these downtowns are the kinds of things that make us special, the kinds of things that make us unique. I have no desire to go to another strip mall. I have no desire to go to a huge shopping center. They're all over the world. There's not just our country, the Middle West, they're all over the world. And I don't know what the point of it is if we all look alike, if we all think alike, if we all speak the same language, if we all eat the same foods. This is the best kind of diversity. This is the best kind of diversification that makes it likelier we'll survive and thrive. So I'm really delighted. I mean, it's a small start, but you got to start somewhere. And like you've said, we've talked about this for years and years. We've had numerous planners. We've had numerous outside people come in, you and Mr. Zagian, for example, and our new city manager. That seems to be a recurring theme, that this is the place where we invest, where we start investing. So I'm very pleased with this. There certainly are issues. There always are. But this is something that feels right for me. And I think it'll be right for the community.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Yeah, there must be 25 or so people here from the downtown businesses and so forth. I don't think they all want to speak, but I think one or two other people wanted to speak, if that's okay.
Before we do, let me ask you this. For those that are in favor of this proposal moving forward that are from the downtown, by a show of hands. Anyone that is in opposition, whether they're downtown or not? If there are a couple of people that do want to come forward and say a few things, if we can limit those to just a couple of minutes, I'd be more than willing to open up, as we have spent a significant amount of time on this
Thank you, Mr.
topic
Mayor.
already. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Your name and city of residence, please.
Well, I'm Rod Wilson, and live at 521 22nd Street Northwest, and I work for the Northern Century, and our office is downtown. So, and I'm president of the Minot Downtown Business and Professional Association, and a little bit of testimony on the Facade Employment Improvement Program. We're member-owned, supported 501c6 organization in downtown Minot, and our only mission is to make downtown Minot better. And we want to make it the center of the commerce, culture, and civics. Our members support our district-based mission because that's what's good for downtown is good for our members. In many cases, it's really good for the community. We believe the Facade Improvement Program is an example of this, an investment that benefits all of Minot and the region, not just those of us passionate about downtown. There are 3 reasons: curb appeal. Thanks to HGTV, we're familiar with this concept. First impressions matter. It's a fact of life for people and communities also. You can talk to people and they will say things like, have you seen downtown Duluth? Have you seen downtown Grand Forks? Have you seen? So that word of mouth, and we get people downtown. It's kind of a marketing ploy. Put simply, returning downtown buildings to the original historic architecture and architectural intent will make us feel the same way a fresh coat of paint, spring cleaning, or mowing the lawn makes us feel about our own homes. It's an investment in ourselves. It's a refresh and a new start. Helping to unify downtown. You see by the people behind us that we're 100% behind this program. Unification of downtown Minot is strong. It's the strongest that I've seen, and we're just on the threshold. It will get better, and we'll do more. The more unified we become around these ideas, the more successful we become, and it's worth investing in downtown. But it isn't the heavy hand of government demanding, it's the pragmatic hand of government incentivizing the outcomes we know will help us move in the right direction, and that's really smart. Downtown vibrancy is a solution to our biggest challenge. How many people see help wanted signs you see out these days? It doesn't matter who you talk to. Workforce retention and attraction is our biggest challenge. And a vibrant, uniquely Minot downtown district is a big key to meeting that challenge. Downtown is where you go when you want something you can't get anyplace else in town, and maybe some other towns. We have great momentum. There are great things happening downtown. We hope this program and what it delivers is the next example we can point to with pride. With that, Mayor Sitma and council members, I'd be happy to stand for any questions. And I don't know that I can answer any more than what you've heard tonight, but I certainly will if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Any last takers for quick comments? Your name and address for the record, please.
Sherry McLaughlin,
I'm sorry,
405.
town of residence. For the
Minot,
record.
North Dakota.
Thank you.
I'm going to address Councilman Tom Ross, first of all. I have businesses that are downtown, and I have businesses that are not downtown. And I'm quite honestly not going to apply for any of these programs. However, I think this is vital for downtown Minot. Because when I look at places I travel, I've got a downtown Bozeman. I've got a downtown Kansas City. It makes me go to a community. So I think there's going to be good ways that you can defend the money being spent downtown. It revitalizes the area. It makes more people come here and shop. It is the heart of the city. It is the heart of the community. That's my belief on everything else. Like I said, I won't be applying for this, but I 100% support all the other businesses that apply for it. I think it's going to change the facade of downtown, change the feel of downtown, and bring more people downtown. I want my son to stay here. I want him to want to have the downtown something he likes being at. Not being from here, I'm trying to figure out ways to keep him downtown and keep him invested in Minot. So I hope everybody supports this.
Thank you. Last call for comments. If not, I would look back to the council. If there is, I'd perhaps look to any of the council members that have not said a piece, if they have any comments. If not, we have a motion to approve. Final call for comments for Robert's Rules of Orders. Alderman Pittner.
Just be very quick, and I wanted to address the last speaker, Ms. McLaughlin. That is so encouraging to me that we have individuals that again, are not planning on applying for funding, may not even qualify for funding. We had emails today, people that aren't even qualifying for funding or planning on applying, they get it. They support, we need to support our neighbors and lift each other up, and it's a collective lift, because this is not only good for downtown neighbors, but the city as a whole. And again, I want to reiterate that's such a key thing to understand with programs like this and future programs that come before us. So again, thank you for everyone for showing up.
All right, we have a motion to approve with a second. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes?
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to our next action item, and this is the Recycling Transfer Station and New Landfill Entrance Approval Plans and Specs, project number 4580. The implementation of a curbside recycling program within the City of Minot has been an ongoing discussion over the past year and years. There appears to be a general agreement with regards to the program details and cost, but prior to the program starting, the city needs a facility to transfer the recycling material to ship out for the processing. This project would construct a transfer facility along with a new entrance to the landfill in the southwest corner of the quarter section south of our current landfill. The recommendation to council was to approve the plan and specifications for the recycling transfer facility and new landfill entrance and authorize the call for bids.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this. I think that there is a significant desire in the community for curbside recycling, but I want to point out that this is not an all or nothing proposition in terms of what we're doing tonight, meaning that we need to go forward with this step in order to get a real number and understand what the cost actually is for the transfer station. As the memo stated, it has increased significantly. I think 60% was the number since the initial estimate that we got. And I would also like to suggest to staff that we also update the projections that were made for the other components of this program, fuel costs for transportation, and commodity prices, which are volatile, so that we also make sure that the other components that we're dealing with are accurate numbers vis-a-vis what we presented a number of months ago, and that were included in the survey that was done about participation, because I think those things, need to be kept up to date, and we need to know what we're dealing with, as does our public, so that when we get to the end and implement this thing, which I sincerely hope we can do, that we will not be presenting people with actual costs that are far different than what the projected costs were. So I think we need to do that. And as the memo states, once we get these prices, we can decide to do both of these pieces, or do one or the other, or do neither. And so I think it's good that we support this tonight, but I think we need to keep our eyes open and look at the data as it is coming at us today, as opposed to the way it was maybe a number of months ago. Thank you.
Final call for comments. Motion is to approve.
I just have a question for Mr. Sorensen. What is the timeline we're looking at for like bids and when they would come back and when you could get updated numbers that Alderman Janser has asked for, just so the public is sort of aware of what time frame we're looking at.
Mayor Sitma, Alderwoman Evans, the plan sets that are linked in the agenda, they're probably about a 70-75% plan sets. There's a little bit of touching up to do to get finished plans. So I would guess, in a couple months, I think we could probably have numbers back.
And would this still, let's say everything goes as we plan, and hope, would this still get us to the mark of like curbside recycling in the summer of 2022, or has the delays and other things pushed that back?
Yeah, as we've been, I'm here today and I was supposed to probably have been here about a month ago, so I'm already, delays have already, kicked in. Things just don't work out when you're, putting pencil to paper and hoping for the best. So as of now, I think it'd be our best decision would be to go spring 2023. I think that would give us then the winter of 22-23 to kind of get the last pieces in place. The problem we have is if we move down this road of implementing recycling, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 7,000 garbage cans that need to get delivered. So doing that in the middle of winter is just not a great activity. So it only gives us that short window from May to September-ish, somewhere around there, to make that happen. So that's kind of what my recommendation is based on.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Any other questions for Mr. Sorensen while he's at them? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Final call for comments. Motion is to approve. We have a second. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to our final action items, and this is the new landfill investigation project number 4545. In September of 2017, the City of Minot purchased 2 quarters of land to expand the landfill. Rezoning this land to public for future landfill use came against significant public opposition. After over a year of public meetings, focus group discussions, site suitability analysis, and relocation cost analysis, a smaller expansion was eventually rezoned and approved for expansion. It was the desire of the City Council at the time to begin finding a site for a new landfill. The recommendation of the Council is to authorize the Mayor to sign the task order for a new landfill investigation with CPS Ltd. The attached shows the price of this investigation at $370,000.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderwoman Olson.
I move that we deny this item.
Motion to deny the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Discussion on the motion. Alderwoman Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have discussed this a lot. In the last 11 years that I've been up here, it has been on our agenda many, many different times. And I understand the frustration of some of the neighboring landowners. But I also believe that it will be difficult, if not impossible, to find land in a different location for landfill activities. So I just don't feel at this time that it's money well spent to start searching for those properties. I think that the funds can be used for something else. We've just talked about, transfer facility. We've got a lot going on at the landfill, and I think that money could be reallocated. And I think that will also make it clearer for our staff on what they need to be focusing on, because I think that they have put in a lot of time trying to find answers for us. And I would prefer that they not have to work on that any longer and just focus on even our last agenda item. So at this time, I just don't feel that it's right that we move forward with this.
Further discussion on the motion. Alderman Padragula.
I have mixed feelings about this. I think what we approved earlier will go a long way in improving the situation. If we recycle, that'll reduce significantly our need for landfill space. I think getting the entrance onto a major highway will make it much easier and much better for the people in the neighborhood, who are having to endure a great deal of truck traffic. I think that we, do need to fish or cut bait at some point about many of these things. The thing that makes me pause and makes me think that we really do need to go forward and look at it more carefully is maybe commitment is too strong a word, but maybe promise is too strong a word, but the commitment we made toward people when we last dealt with this, and that was to go forward and explore carefully the alternatives. I don't remember the exact wording and the exact tone of the discussions, but I think we said pretty clearly, we're out of here. And I think the approval for the rezoning was contingent upon the notion that that would just be for a limited period of time, which probably be 15 or 20 years, because that's how long it takes to get a new landfill going. But I would feel a bit uncomfortable. I was around then, and we had a lot of controversy, a lot of meetings, and I think the agreement we came to was that we would be looking elsewhere. Now, things have changed dramatically since then. That's the other part of it. We have a new city manager who I think is encouraging us to be more prudent in some of our expenditures. And when I look at even the old numbers in terms of how much it would have cost us, we're looking at major funds. And I agree with Lisa that we have a lot of other things on our plate, more so than I think we had a few years ago. But I'm uncomfortable reversing course on this. We told people we would investigate it carefully. If the numbers come back bad, then I'd be willing to pull the plug. I mean, we don't make commitments forever. We can't bind future councils. We can't kind of make a decision forevermore. But I just don't feel comfortable. I think the discussion was, the conclusion the council came to back then was that we were going to be leaving. And without some good information, without some good budgetary figures, without a firm opinion from the experts saying, no, there is no place, I'm just not comfortable going back on that.
I just have a few words in on this, as I have been an opponent of spending, and I'm going to borrow the words from Alderman Padugula, throwing good money after bad. As I've said many times before, the former Public Works Director spent a decade looking for land. And Alan knows this area dang well and knows the landowners. And if he wasn't able to in a decade, $370,000 to repeat the exact same process at this time just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Even if we take a look at what Grand Forks did, moving theirs a mile after all of those expenses, moving it about a mile and then actually even having more restrictive guidelines with their new landfill of having to essentially bag everything, put a heck of a lot more cost on all of their sanitation customers. And then I think back to is how much more can we do as a community on our own backs when it comes to the bills every month. We're doing flood control, $1 billion project. We are doing NAWS. We are going through the recovery of what was a boom and then also destroying a quarter of our city in the process. How much more can we do? I think an estimate that has been thrown was double or triple the cost to the sanitation customers, even if a suitable place could be found within 20, 30, 40 miles, or maybe not at all, and then trying to find one of the other regional landfills, whether it be Williston or Bismarck, to take our garbage. And Bismarck just had a couple of stories about their limited space. I'm not in favor of throwing any more good money after bad at this point. I'm not going to, I will support the motion that is made to deny. I think we need to focus on our strengths right now, as we pointed out, downtown, getting flood control built, NAWS, and take some of that load off of the backs, or potential load off the backs, for what would be a very, very long time. Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I am in agreement with you and Alderman Olson. I think that it's correct that this has been before us multiple times over the last number of years. And if we approve the motion on before us, there's nothing to say that it won't come back sometime in the future. But I think at the present time, I agree with the comments of the mayor that we could very well spend these hundreds of thousands of dollars that are proposed and some more money to come to a conclusion that the solution that we found isn't affordable. And I'm not willing to do that right now. I think we have other commitments that have already been made where we are expending funds that we can't turn off the tap to, and therefore we need to wait on this for some future time. Thank you.
Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I find myself, as far as what side of the line, I find myself in line with Alderman Padrigula, and I don't think any comments or any concerns are unwarranted. I think they're all valid. Again, there's always some better way to spend dollars, and but again, I find myself in the respect that we said we would do this when we last sat up here and really discussed this after a lot of those meetings, and as far as to Alderman Olson's comments, I don't know. I don't know if there's a better site. That's why this is in front of us. I don't want to rely on myself when someone comes to me and says, well, why did you guys vote against it? Well, I don't feel that there's a better site. I don't know that. I'm not an expert. You know, I'm not doing the study. I'm a council member. So again, I would rather check these boxes and say there wasn't a more viable site. There wasn't. Go through the process so that this is where I'm coming from. This is why I want to go through the process so that I have grounds to stand on, and I can look at these property owners or future developers and say, we looked at it, we did it, and this is what it came back with. And if you wanted to spend an exuberant amount of money, we could do that, but when we got the numbers in front of us, it didn't make sense. So again, that's where I find myself. Again, it's a contentious place to be, and one thing that's helped and I think provided some context to this is our budget workshops that we hosted, and we took a tour of the landfill. I mean, and we see the challenges. We see the area. You know, I think Alderman Padrigula, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you would kind of point out, I could see why people would be upset about a landfill being right here. I mean, it's right down the road. It's so close to these places. And if we can do better, and this isn't about just Southwest Minot, this is about the community as a whole. This is about planning our community as a whole. And that's why I want to move forward with this. But again, just want those comments to be out there. I feel like we made a commitment to this, and things have changed. I get that. But I still feel like I want to be committed to it.
Other comments? Alderwoman Evans.
Just three things. One is I will be voting to support this motion to deny. I've talked to, just like the mayor talked about, a former city manager. You know, I've talked to a lot to former long-serving Alderman Jim Hadelid, who has told me about the history of this council and city staff looking and poring over maps of the area to look for areas. And this has been done. I mean, you know, I trust that the people who've went through this process for decades, you know, we would perhaps come up with the same conclusion. And I'm not willing and comfortable right now allotting $370,000 of taxpayer money to perhaps come to, or in all likelihood, come to the same conclusion.
Other comments? Mr. City Manager.
If I may just weigh in a little bit here, I understand the difficulty and the complexity of this decision, and I definitely don't envy you in this decision, but maybe just a few comments on Minot's situation, and then maybe wax a little bit philosophical on general trends that I see across the country with regards to this matter. So the first one being is that, you know, you have a significant amount of capacity. You've already invested in some land that gives you some growth capacity at this landfill for a good length of time, actually probably a better period of time than most communities that I have seen. You've done due diligence for quite some time with studies and staff working on this for some time, and the conclusion has continued to come back that it's going to be very difficult and have some significant challenges. And I think some of those challenges that I see going forward are, this isn't as simple as just going out and finding another 50 acres and buying it and putting a landfill out there. In our current EPA regulation environment and those types of things, there's certain standards that we have to hit and everything else, which means soil samples, coring and drilling, and all these other types of things. And you're still going to have the issue of the not in my backyard, the NIMBY, no matter where you put this. Even if we put it somewhere outside the jurisdiction, you're going to be dealing with other jurisdictions. Whether or not you even have a property owner that's even willing to sell their land for this use, the list of challenges continues to go on and on and on. So at the end of the day, the clock is ticking on the capacity of the landfill, not only for this one, but for all landfills throughout the country. This landfill situation is not a situation that's unique to Minot. Any community or business that runs a landfill is going to be running into these same issues. But at the end of the day, it's either you continue to be in the business of providing the service to your community and finding a solution for a landfill. And I think your most cost-effective decision for now, for the next probably 20 to 30 years, is to use the current landfill that you have for as long as you can. And when I say cost-effective, I'm also talking about the end impact to the user. That is, what are your sanitation fees going to be to this community going forward? If you want to stabilize those and keep those as low as you possibly can, your best alternative on the table is to continue to use your current landfill. If you don't, again, there's a lengthy process. If you want to stay in the business of finding a new landfill location, I mean, we're talking $370,000 just to do a study on it, and that's the tip of the iceberg on the cost that you're going to have invested in going through this process. We're talking millions of dollars, multiple millions of dollars to go through that process, if you can even get to it at that point. And then if you can't find a landfill, the other process is to contract out the transportation of this. And they're going to have the same problem. They still have to have somewhere to take it. Right? Now you're going to add the costs of logistics and transportation. And conservative estimate is you're going to at least double your sanitation expenses, if not triple or quadruple it over time. Now, if I can wax philosophical about the trend generally, again, I alluded earlier regarding the regulatory environment with the EPA and those types of things. That is not unique to Minot. That is something that all communities that run landfills, or all businesses that run landfills across the country, are going to deal with. And landfills across the country continue to use their capacity at rapid rates. We're in a very consumer-driven culture and environment. And most landfills aren't even meeting their original design lifespan. And I guess my whole point to all of this is at some point this is going to become a national issue. Because the federal government has a role in this with the EPA and the restrictions and the regulatory environment that they've created with this. And I don't know that it's a conversation that's being had at the national level at this point. But at some point it's going to be, and I think at some point the federal government has to be as part of the solution in this, both from a funding mechanism and from a regulatory environment standpoint. And I would hate for Minot to get too far ahead of that when there has to be some conversation about this at the national level with the federal government and our states to some extent. And I don't know if the answer to this is at a state level with a state landfill, or whether it's a federally regulated service that we now, businesses or communities truck their sanitation to. But I think we're seeing the end of an era where communities can continue to take on these costs for their community, just as Alderman Janser talked about. The costs are astronomical. And if we're struggling with it as a community of Minot, how are your communities like Velva or Burlington or any of those smaller communities going to deal with this? Which brings up another point, and that is we don't just provide this service to the citizens of Minot. We're a regional hub. We provide this service to multiple communities around us. And I just don't think it's fair to ask the taxpayers of Minot to bear this alone. And I think some patience in this regard is prudent, and hoping to spur that national conversation and get this on the radar, and hopefully start putting in some federal government financing mechanisms, because this is going to be a national problem.
Final call for comments. Seeing none, the motion is to deny. Please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
No.
Quadrigula?
No.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion to deny passes. That takes us to number 9. This is personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to come forward and speak on any item that is or is not on our agenda. I would just ask, if anybody does come forward, that you just state your name and city of address, city of residence for the record. One more call for personal appearances. Seeing none, we'll move on to the miscellaneous and discussion items. We don't have any one item that is identified on our agenda. Is there any item from the council that needs discussion for the good of the order this evening? Alderwoman Evans.
It's not an item for discussion, but I just wanted to welcome a reoccurring visitor, MSU student senator Christopher Scott, who comes to observe our things and actually reports back to the student government at Minot State on ways that we can continue working with the student government at Minot State to help Minot State and help the city. So we always appreciate your attendance, Christopher.
Welcome. Any other items? Seeing none, that takes us to our last item on our agenda, and that is adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Pittner. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Janser. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.